Thanks for joining us here on 9 News Plus. Now, you may have heard of the Denver Nuggets are into the NBA Finals for the first time in their 47-year NBA history. And joining us for a series, Game 1 preview, all the fun stuff here is 9 Sports' Jacob Toby. And Jacob, I got to go back to the start of the playoffs when you said that the Nuggets would make the finals. That was your prediction.
I did say that.
So Ariel Orsuto hates it when I put her on the spot with predictions, but this time your prediction panned out.
Yeah, and they made it look fairly easy. 5 games against the Timberwolves, 6 games against the Suns, but they blew them out in Game 6. It wasn't even really a competition. And then they sweep the Lakers. I did not see a sweep in this team's future back when you asked me that question of, how they're going to get through the playoffs. I thought it'd be a little bit more of a grind, but they've been off for more than a week now. After sweeping LeBron, they made LeBron think about retirement. The Nuggets did that, right? After they sweep him in LA. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, but it's still not over. 4 more wins. They need 4 more wins to get their first ever NBA title.
Well, now we know who the Nuggets will play after a week-long wait. We now know after Monday night's Miami Heat victory, they won by about 20 points on Monday night over the Boston Celtics. A lot of people here in Denver seem to be kind of celebrating that matchup. Are you one of those?
Yeah, it's tough. This Heat team is a very different Heat team. They've had 7 undrafted players playing in their rotation this playoff series, which is like unheard of. I mean, they're guys that were overlooked in college that didn't get drafted that have become really good NBA players. Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent are kind of the 2 guys that you look at with Jimmy Butler, who's been a star in this league for a long time. So that's kind of their core there, and they're a different team. They fight like heck. They're not the most talented team. Like the Nuggets have more talent, but the Celtics had more talent, and they couldn't even beat the Heat. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if the Celtics were to play the Nuggets, I think the Celtics have given the Nuggets a little bit more trouble in past. The Heat haven't won a game in Denver since 2016. It's been a long time, and in that game, that was a game where Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic were coming off the bench because they were that young. They were not ready to be NBA starters yet. So it's been a while since the Heat have come to Denver and won a basketball game. So, yeah, they're a different team. They're not as talented as Boston. I think people are kind of right to celebrate the matchup, but I don't think people should overlook the Heat. I just think, Boston has Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, 2 legit NBA superstars. Jimmy Butler is kind of the only superstar on the Miami Heat, so that's why people would be like, oh, it's going to be an easier matchup. Not necessarily. The Heat play better defense than the Celtics, so we'll see. But I'm not sure how Miami's going to stop the Joker, but we'll see, I guess.
Well, Miami's taken out the Bucks, the 1 seed in the East,
with
the first
Giannis,
round. Took out the 5 seed, the Knicks. Second round, pretty comfortably in 6 games. Then they go and take out the Celtics. Yeah. And by the way, did it in such weird style. They win the first 3 games. You think they're cruising, and then Boston comes back and wins 3, and then Miami in Boston wins Game 7. Bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah. So the Heat have shown capability to win on the road in big games. I mean, to win the first 2 games in Boston was really difficult. They didn't make it look difficult. They blew them out, or they played well, especially in Game 2. Game 1 was a bit close, and then to blow them out in a Game 7 in Boston, where championships have been won before. That says a lot about this team, and I think you got to give credit to Eric Spoelstra, who's I think the longest tenured head coach in the NBA. Michael Malone, I think, 2nd or 3rd. For the Nuggets, but Spoelstra's been there. He's an NBA champion. He's won 3, and he's a really smart guy. And I think the Nuggets respect that. I think Denver knows how good of a coach he is. But all the credit goes to him. He had his guys ready to play in Game 7, and there's no mistake about it. He'll have his guys ready to play in Denver. Now, will they be tired because they've just went through a 7-game series and they have to play in elevation? That we might see that manifest over Games 1 or 2, but they'll be ready mentally.
All right. I'm going to do this for a quick second here, Jacob.
Okay.
You know why? This is what the Nuggets have been doing for the last 8 days.
Do you think that this seat up on the desk? If I could do that, I would.
Let's kick it up. Oh, look at that. This is what the Nuggets have been doing for 8 days now. Does that help or hurt them?
Ultimately, I think it helps them.
Okay.
I think it helps them.
They're probably a little banged up.
They're definitely banged. They were definitely banged up. Joker's had a wrist thing. Jamal Murray's had a thumb thing. I'm sure Aaron Gordon's battling through something, just because he's banging down low with all the big men in the NBA. And Mike, it's always great to get Michael Porter Jr. rest. You never know with his back and all that stuff. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he's a veteran. He can use the rest. He's talked about being banged up too. So yeah, I mean, rest is great. I mean, Denver's really only played 7 guys, 8 sometimes. And so their rotation has been shrunk down, and so they play the guys that, that they want to play, which is, a 7-man rotation, and they're getting a lot of minutes. So yeah, there's a lot of tread on the tires there. So it's great to get rest, I think. Will they be a little rusty coming out? Probably. But then again, Michael Malone has stressed in these practices where they didn't know who they were going to play, has stressed conditioning, has stressed just working on yourself and being ready for the moment. And so yeah, I think they'll be fine. I think the rest will help them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the rest helps them.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there's a chance they come out.
I think a little bit, just because they haven't played an NBA game in almost a week and a half by Thursday. I mean, that's like AllStar break, when you're going into the AllStar break and you don't play for 5 or 6 days. Like, that's the stretch that these guys have had. But again, when you're at AllStar break, you're not really practicing with the team or whatever. They've still conditioned, they've practiced. They had a couple days off, when they got back from LA. But I mean, yeah, there has to be a little bit of a slippage, I think, just in terms of like the chemistry, the pace of the game. But once that subsides, they'll be fine.
Well, you've been around this team. Where do you sense that they're at mentally? Are they excited? Are they nervous? Is there pressure?
I sense no nerves, like zero nerves. Contavious Caldwell-Pope talked about it yesterday in the media session. He says he's surprised at the focus level that they have right now with the layoff. I mean, it's a week to sit and just think about who you're going to play and not know. But he says the practices have been really focused, and I get the sense, you talk to Joker, you talk to Jamal, you talk to Michael Porter Jr., you go down the line, they're just not satisfied. This is one of the most driven teams I've ever seen. Now, don't get me wrong, the Heat are driven too. This is an 8th seed, only the second 8th seed ever to make an NBA Finals. The 1999 Knicks did it as well. You have to be driven if you're going to be an 8th seed and make the NBA Finals. So both teams are two of the more driven teams I've ever seen, covering this league for the last 5 years or so of my career. But I think they're relaxed. They're ready to go. They're just anxious, probably more than anything, right? To just get going. So that's what I would say. They're ready, but they're anxious.
They're ready to bolt it. Something that's interesting to me that you said there is that the Nuggets. We talked about this off the top. First time in their 47-year history that they're in the NBA Finals. I wouldn't have sensed that there would have been a sense of complacency about the Nuggets. They're going to be the heavy favorites, obviously, in the series. No doubt about that. But there wasn't, based on what you're saying there, it doesn't seem like there was a ton of celebration about the fact that they just made the finals.
No. We asked Joker about it a couple days ago, and he said, nope, I didn't celebrate. And he didn't really have a reason why. He's not ready to do that yet. I mean, they kind of talked about it after the game. 30 minutes, 30 minutes in the locker room after the game. There was some champagne, there were some beers. They got on the flight, and they had a little party on there. And then pretty much after they got on the flight and got off the flight, that's where the party ended. They're just not satisfied, man. And I love that energy about them, just because that's what you need if you're going to win an NBA championship, is that you need to always have that dog, and you need to have something that irks you. And what irks them is that this franchise has never won anything before like that, and they're ready to go out and get it.
Well, final thing that before we get out of here, speaking of things that might irk you, maybe the national media coverage around the Nuggets, which has certainly not been particularly kind to Denver. If you just kind of new to this, you're just catching up on the Nuggets. National media pundits have basically overlooked the Nuggets. I think it's safe to say they've had high-profile series against the Lakers and LeBron. Before that was Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and the Suns. And it seems like the Nuggets have been kind of left in the dust a little bit. Do you think that's affecting this team at all?
Some of the players have hinted at it a little bit. Some others haven't. Michael Malone has been very public about the disrespect level that's come from the national media. But at the end of the day, these guys generally don't really care what's being said on the outside. They're very close-knit. They keep it tight. They keep it quiet. They don't really talk about the narratives outside. I mean, that's our job. That's what we do. In Denver, obviously, we're propping them up as much as we can, but the national guys and gals just hadn't seen him play, didn't know how good of a player Jokic is. He's the best player in the NBA right now, hands down. There's no questions about it. I think that's becoming more of a national thought now, and that's nationally recognized as him being the best player in the world. So, yeah, there has been bad national talk about the Nuggets, but at the end of the day, if they win the championship, there can't be any more of that, right? I mean, they've got here, they did their job so far. There's still more work to do, but if they win the NBA championship, that shuts up everybody. And Joker's done a good job of shutting people up so far. So he's got 4 more wins to go. But again, the national stuff, I mean, yeah, it makes us upset here, but at the same time, we can't change that. That people on the outside have to change. They have to watch this team grow and become likable and watch how good of a player Jokic and Murray are, and that's their job to come around on that. We know.
Oh,
they know.
We know.
They don't know. Whatever. Who cares about them, right?
It's such a different star. We can talk about that all day.
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to write it down here.
Okay.
Jacob's prediction.
Oh.
What's the prediction here?
I think the Nuggets do win the NBA championship. I think it's in 5 games. I think Miami gets 1 at home, and I think Denver comes back to Ball Arena and wins it on the home floor, and then the parade. I mean, we can talk about that later when it actually happens. But yeah, I just the Heat are good, and I think people have, myself included, have maybe disrespected them a little bit, kind of like the national media has disrespected Denver a little bit. Just people always wrote off, Miami's an 8 seed. There's no way they can get this done. Jimmy Butler's a bad man, and he showed it again. He's the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, played great in Game 7. But I just think no one is going to be able to stop the 2-time league MVP, Nikola Jokic. I mean, they have a center, Bam Adebayo. He's been decent in the playoffs, but he's not as big and strong as Jokic is. So I expect Joker to dominate. I expect nothing less from him. I expect Jamal Murray to play well, and I think the Nuggets are a deeper team. Their bench is probably better. But the Heat have that fight, so I expect them to win 1 game, but I think it's over in 5. If you're going to ask me, that's my prediction, so we'll see what happens.
Wrote it in pen. I hope you're right, Jacob.
Pen, not pencil.
Yeah, I wrote it in pen, so that way this won't go away
Good.
anywhere. But
Yes.
Nuggets at 5, Jacob Toby, thanks for joining us here on 90s
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.